All right, welcome to this panel. This panel is about unlocking the power of Domo and getting analytics your way. Incredibly excited to, share this stage with my panelists, our virtual stage. I'm Michael Gilfix. I'm part of the Domo team. And as part of this session, you're going to hear from 3 project implementers who are going to share their experience in pushing the Domo platform's limits in order to make sure that their organization, got their data the way that they wanted. And it's always exciting to talk to folks that have done real world implementations and want to share some of their best practices. So with that, we're just going to hear a quick introduction so you can learn a little bit more from our panelists, starting with you, Julian.
Hi, everyone. Julian Birch. I'm from Vault Vision in the UK. We've been using Domo for about 18 months now. We're a business-to-business operation, so we build and distribute dashboards to clients. And then at the core of our business is that we remotely collect data from high voltage electrical equipment, analyze that and visualize it across multiple dashboards for our clients.
All right, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Lander. I'm an analytics consultant at Graphable. Graphable is a partner with Domo, actually, and we do consulting for companies all across every industry. So a lot of experience. I've been doing Domo for about a year now, and Graphable's been partners for about 5 years now.
Fabulous. And then we have a duo from Rogers.
I'll go first. My name is Kristian Ayre. I'm a senior manager for Media Measurement Solutions, which is working for Rogers Sports and Media in Canada. Media Measurement Solutions is kind of a fancy way to say I do the reporting. Rogers Sports and Media is a Canadian media company specializing in television, radio, out-of-home digital content, and it's a subsidiary of Rogers Communications, which is a big telecommunications company in Canada. So the reporting I do spans various different teams, sort of addresses sales and content needs, but the focus for today is related to how we use Domo to deliver turnkey digital campaign reporting for the sales teams. And I work pretty closely with the sales teams that I understand, sort of contextualize their business problems and understand what they need from reporting for the various clients. But when it comes to actual solutions, that's where I rely very heavily on my colleague, who's thankfully here today. That's Jason Doucette.
And hey, everybody, I am Jason Doucette. So I lead the ad tech operations teams here over at Rogers Sports and Media, which basically means we connect our business stakeholders with our IT teams and ensure that our sales and operations people are able to do things better, smarter, faster, whenever they can.
All right, fabulous. Thank you all for joining us. I think to set the stage for our audience, we need to kind of paint the picture. Tell some folks a bit about your business. What do you do? What's the context? And how is data powering what you do in your business? Again, starting with Julian.
Okay, well, yes, the main premise of our business is that we rescue stranded data. These big operations we work at, they've all got electrical power meters and protection relays that are all digital devices. They're all microcomputers. They are measuring the whole time, but they're very rarely are they connected or people are looking at them. I think as a routine, people might go and look at them twice a day, kind of note down on a clipboard, what the power usage was since the last time it was read, so that they've got a kind of approximate measure of that. But we deploy a device that essentially turns that into an Internet of Things device, and we stream data from those devices every second. So we're building a huge, great data store, enabling the sites, the electrical engineers to really get into their data, to understand their power quality and understand how they can improve it, reduce costs, reduce carbon.
And Julian, you were telling me a bit about the kinds of things that you're monitoring are things I wouldn't normally associate with being digital, like mining operations, right? That seems a very physical thing. So, maybe kind of share a little bit about that, because it's pretty cool, the kinds of things you're getting data on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we focus mainly on the electrical side of things, but again, a mine in mineral mine in West Africa, they're a huge, great operation. I did a kind of quick calculation and realized that one of these sites uses the equivalent, say, of kind of 25,000 UK homes. That's the equivalent. So they are enormous users of power, and therefore anything that you can kind of shave off in terms of I've had to go back to my schoolboy physics a bit to remember my electrical theory, but learning new things like power factors and things. And again, through the data that we're providing, they can really closely monitor their power factor. They can improve that power factor that essentially enables them to use their power more efficiently.
Fabulous. I did electrical engineering in college, so we'll talk later. Ryan, back to you, please. Let's hear a bit about your contest.
Yeah, so I'll be speaking. I'll preface this by saying we're consultants. So the company I'm talking about today has clients of themselves. So our client really wanted to utilize data for their particular clients, like a few hundred of them. They are essentially a record label that handles publishing music for individual artists or individual bands, artist groups. So they wanted to get artist-specific data directly to their clients as easy as possible for their client. Typically not the most tech-savvy clientele. Like if you're a music artist, you don't really want to be signing into a portal or anything like that, but you do want to see the demographics that your art is reaching, how much money is bringing in, where that money is coming from, so you can better maybe, I don't know, create art.
Anyone good that we would know about?
There's a few. I guess I can stick with TV shows like NFL Network. Just Dance Now has been on there. Those shows have had songs from our clients on there.
Yeah, so like anyone listening will know now it's powered by Domo every time they hear the theme music. So that's fabulous. All right, and over to the Rogers team.
Yeah, so we've been working with Domo for a couple of years, and it's really been a pretty critical tool for us to be able to scale the digital campaign reporting, as I was mentioning. It's critical because there's sort of there's sort of two big areas. We're a big organization is one of them, and the other is that digital is just really complicated. So in the big organization bucket, we've got hundreds of sales staff across the organization, across the country. Over the course of the year, they're collectively responsible for thousands of reports delivered to the clients, our advertising clients, and the clients themselves are really diverse. You've got local versus national, you have agency versus direct. And when it comes to what they expect from the reporting, some of them only want PowerPoint reporting delivered to them. Others only want Excel reporting delivered to them. Others want a combination of both, and the cadences are different. So it's just kind of complicated on just the organization front. And then as well, with a team that large and with various different data sources plugging into digital, the consistency in the KPIs and the consistency in the look and feel of the reporting is really critical. If you don't solve for everything, if you don't provide that turnkey solution, then you've got some choose your own adventure going on, which you really don't want in certain pockets of the organization if they're kind of not following the proper KPI definitions or just not using the right sort of branded templates and that kind of a thing. So big org on the one side. Digital is complicated. So we've got on any given campaign we could have like 11 different data sources or tactics feeding into it. So a campaign might have display activated by Google Ad Manager, eBlast coming from Salesforce Marketing Cloud, video on demand coming from Cadent or Freewheel, CTV, OTT, Magnite. The list just goes on and on and on. And there's all these differentiated KPIs inside of each of those tactics. So while you could bring things together for a bit of a concise clicks and impressions type of summary, if you really want meaningful reporting, you have to kind of have that double click into each tactic to understand the distinct KPIs. So prior to Domo, very difficult to scale for if you're relying on sort of your traditional development cycles. And of course, Jason can speak to this a little better than I can. But if you're into sprints and sort of those change requests into something we're using prior to Domo, it's just difficult to solve for like all 11 different sources. So we only really tackled the big ones, and the rest were, as I mentioned, a little more choose your own adventure. So Domo really helped us to scale and be able to sort of like have that turnkey ability to produce. If you enter the order ID into the system that comes from the order management system, merge back to the 11 or 12 different data sources, it shows you the links to all of them. And then at the end of all of that work, which was awesome, it saves everybody a ton of time, but there's this last mile, and that's sort of where we get into the need for that custom app, which Jason will describe a little better than I can. But basically, we still at the end of the day having joined everything, you still have 5 links requiring 5 clicks, requiring 5 page loads on Domo, 5 requests for a PowerPoint. Finally, you get the PowerPoint, you hit download, and then you have 5 files. None of them are branded, and then we need the branding. So Jason will talk a little bit about how we executed on that using a custom app. But yeah, pretty complicated to get to the endpoint on the digital reporting delivery.
Jason, do you want to add something to that?
No, I think that's it. We're going to talk about the actual specific solution a
Yeah.
bit later in the panel, right? So we'll hold that, keep everybody in suspense until we get to a reveal.
Always a good strategy.
That frames up the problem though nicely. Thanks, Kristian.
All right. So I think next, since this is a panel after all on, unlocking the power of Domo, so you can have data kind of your way, maybe each of you can describe a little bit of, what did you set out to do? And why did that necessitate kind of going above and beyond, right? Sort of like the core of what Domo can do and leveraging its customization capabilities. So maybe just to switch it up, Ryan, let's start with you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying before, our clients had a few hundred, and each one, some of them were aware that this data existed and wanted to see it. And our client didn't have anything built to do that. But they realized through those ad hoc requests that probably all their clients would like to see this data if it's out there. The tricky part is they wanted no branding. They wanted, client-specific branding. And when there's hundreds of those, that can get pretty complicated within Domo. They also, another big thing was they didn't want anyone to have to sign in anywhere. They wanted to stick to paper reports, because if the majority of their clientele didn't know this data existed, they thought the easiest way to not overwhelm them and get them invested in the data was just handing them a nice looking piece of paper with real data on it. So where Domo fell short is that sort of individual branding per client. The data per client was there, but getting something visually looking very nice and printing out hundreds of them at once was a bit of a stretch. So we were able to then bring in a custom app, which we could utilize. Pretty much anything you want. I mean, it hosts your web app. So we wanted to use a certain framework to make behavior in the app work a certain way. So we were able to use React that way. We brought in AWS S3 buckets as well to store client-specific images. So depending on the client, it'll go in, grab a certain thing by an ID, a certain image, bring it to that PDF, does that automatically as well, using the data from Domo. And then the actual visuals, our client really liked what Domo had. So we were able to use the Domo Phoenix library as well as the Domo API to get the data to keep that sort of Domo aesthetic, but remove labeling and add outside Domo aesthetic as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the themes that seems common actually between the three of you all is there's a data distribution problem to be had here, right? You're all kind of trying to reach different audiences with very personalized views of the data, and you've got to manage the relationships between those and make sure that it's not about the organization even just getting it their way, it's all of their constituents, right? The partners, the ecosystem, the consumers of it. And that seems to be a very common thread just between each of you that kind of had you push for like that last little bit. Let's go to the Rogers team as well and hear a little bit of, okay, so what were you guys setting out to do and why'd you have to push the platform a little bit?
I probably jumped the gun on the prior question, sort of about that, getting to that snag point where, the certain of the teams, when you had this multi-tactic campaign, especially when it was required to be delivered in PowerPoint, just spending that extra like 5 to 20 minutes in that, just sort of like clicking buttons, waiting for things to download, getting something unskinned, and then having to put it into the branded template. So while we solved the sort of how to get the data and how to get it in a consistent looking report with consistent KPIs, we solved all of those problems. There was just that last mile where it was still taking the teams this sort of annoying chunk at the last bit to finally refine the reporting, get it into the right state. And so we looked at our options and hand the baton over to Jason on that.
Sure. I think the other aspect, as Kristian went into, is all the different possible permutations and combinations. As you mentioned, we've got, we'll call it 11 different data sources coming in, and each of those have multiple reports and files feeding into that. every campaign will have a different combination of that. So making one master dashboard where people could just go to really wouldn't work, because some sections are not going to be applicable into there, and it requires a lot of curation and editing that might not always be apparent to the end user. We're going to talk mostly about a PowerPoint solution today, but we also have implemented something similar in Excel that just generates out a multi-tabbed approach in an Excel document all ready to go, and it's nice and editable. But we wanted to tackle that as well from a PowerPoint side, because then, you know, if you're doing an agency presentation, if you're bringing something up on a screen, it just looks nicer. We've got some fantastic branding assets that we want to show off in that context. But as Kristian said, it's a little tricky to put all that together. And similar to what Ryan was doing, you know, hey, a PDF would be great. Here, we didn't want to go on PDF route because it's harder for our teams to edit those and make changes. And if they wanted to add a little nuance or you know, fix a typo or those kinds of things into there, there's some barriers. Micah, are we at the point to bring up a
I think we're going to do that just in the next round here when we kind of unveil
Fantastic.
the solution. But Julian, maybe you can share a little bit of sort of your challenge, and then for each of you, I think let's dive into, you know, what you did and what the outcome was.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so listening to the others, thankfully, I haven't had to handle or mess about with paper or PDFs. Our clients are happy to consume it all on the screen, you know, which is good. And I don't know whether it's related to that or not, but I guess it's worth pointing out that, you know, we haven't gone down the custom app route. A lot of what, all of what we've done is kind of done within the Domo platform using the DDX bricks or Domo bricks, as I think they've been rebranded to now. So we have really just gone into those bricks. We've used, you know, our own in-house written JavaScript, HTML, CSS to get the results we need. And in terms of the results we need, you know, we had some fairly bespoke visualizations as well, that, you know, some of these sites we were working with kind of were fairly wedded to the way that they, for example, showed how the power was distributed around the site as well. So that was you know, there was never going to be an out of the box Domo chart that was going to meet that need for us as well. Had some other challenges as well in terms of a lot of the reporting we want to do. You know, we collect data every second, and therefore we need to show charts of it on, you know, with every second. And I think whereas Domo will naturally kind of aggregate things to the minute or the hour to show it per second, was a bit of a challenge for us as well. Also, you know, these mines typically they have what I call a kind of a logical operational day, so that they kind of run a night shift and a day shift. So run through from 5 in the morning one day till 5 in the morning the following day. So all of their reporting they want to do when they talk about it for a day, it's all on that 5-hour offset, which is fine, you can handle that. But then when they want to compare how one day compared to another day, again, Domo will let you compare days, but when you've then already offset it by 5 days as well, you have to do something a bit clever for that as well. And then lastly, we had whilst most of our reporting is around, you know, analytics and analysis, what has happened yesterday, what has just happened, how can I understand that? We did have a use case to have some live data as well. You know, our clients said to us, well, you're capturing this data live, you're reading it every second, can we see that as well? So we had to get creative as well to you know, get some live data being displayed on our dashboards.
Next, I want to go back to the lunar calendar or something, you know?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, you know, this is the part where you guys get to share a little bit of the solution and talk a bit about how life was different afterwards. So I'm really excited. Maybe, Julian, we'll start with you, kind of take a look, and then to Ryan and the Rogers team.
I will share my screen. I've got a short 2-minute video prepared. So yes, so this is one of our summary charts we produce. Then this is the distribution chart down the bottom here as well. So again, so showing how that power is used across the site. And we've done all this in CSS to have some, you know, overlays on there as well. We've got the custom navigation we have up the top there as well, so that we can go from one place to the next. This is where we're able to compare lots of different things. So I think obviously from the presentation that we just had from Domo in terms of this ability to have kind of multifaceted self-service and things, you know, we kind of felt the need to build a lot of that ourselves. I guess it's an interesting point now as well as to whether we will adopt the standard Domo approach, or we'll kind of keep with our kind of custom way that we can do as well. And then this is our live data solution as well, by where using a federated link to our Azure database, and then using a JavaScript control where it kind of keeps polling that as well, even though we're running in a federated environment and with a subscriber instance, we can bring that live data through. So yeah, so that's a quick look at how our dashboards, what we've achieved, what we've built using the Domo Bricks.
Very cool. And just to point out, that's unique for each customer. So you guys are managing the data distribution, the access rights, customized portal, all that stuff is set up per customer, right?
Absolutely. And you kind of cut to the nub of it there really as well, by where our customers they operate in a common industry and environment, but obviously have their own different nuances and things as well. So what we're really needing to do as well, and what we're needing to manage, is have that kind of core capability that most of it is the same for most customers, and we can then just kind of customize the top as well. And the way that we've got flexibility within Domo to do that really suits our kind of agile ways of working and our kind of bespoke deliverables.
Fabulous. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, so nothing to show for me because I don't want to reveal any of the client's data, but I can kind of talk through what the PDF ended up looking like. If you can picture in your Domo instance, you have your Domo dashboards on the left side of that little menu bar. Essentially, some clients there's 4 total dashboards. Some clients had data in those dashboards, some clients didn't. Some clients in those dashboards only wanted the table to show top 10 instead of top 50. So what we were able to do was just take all 4 of those dashboards and combine them into one PDF. A little bit of a shortcoming on Domo was you get 1 dashboard per PDF. Depending on the client that we built programmatic logic to filter for against the Domo data, we could show certain dashboards combined. We could show pieces of certain dashboards on one PDF. So the goal here for us was to really make a pixel perfect PDF in our client's eyes. All the way down to the spacing of fonts, where tables are aligned with each other in order to fit those multiple dashboards on one page of the PDF, as well as bring in the outside images per client as well. So just a nice looking PDF. All the visuals are pretty standard visuals, pie charts, bar charts that you see in Domo that we were able to grab from the Domo Phoenix library. So that was great. And then, yeah, able to just make a very specific per few hundred client PDF.
Well, we'll have to see if the new app builder, the new app studio, is able to simplify that, right? So you can kind of have some depth to your navigation of your data and generating those reports. So maybe there's even simpler way to do it in the future. So we'll have to find out. All right. And the Rogers team, please. I think you have something to show us.
I have to show my knowledge of where the mute button is, but yes, thank you. Let me pop up my screen here. So as Kristian was going through, there we go. We had 2 real problems to solve here. One is we have a lot of dashboards because of different combinations and things, and those things take time to export. And then the other part is, well, once you've exported them, what do you do with them? We also love React here at Rogers, and we built up an application in here, but here it's a separate application. So we didn't host this solution within Domo because we already had an existing mechanism that was doing, for a subset of our cases, as we mentioned earlier. So it just made sense from a workflow and from a resources alignment, because we had a team actively working on that project to move that over there so we could just transition smoothly and just give all the new things. But we do hyperlink directly to these pages from Domo so we can get there. And we're using the Domo API, so it loads up, it knows the order, it knows the start and end dates, we can customize those. And this thing under step 1 is the interesting part here. And we worked with Domo. I saw Jim in the chat. Hey, Jim, just good to see you. There's some things that Domo had to do to on their side to enable a custom app for us that could automate that export. And we're just showing this as a card. We're using Domo Embed to put this into our application. And here it already knows what dashboards are relevant to this campaign. We go through, we can check them all, hit export now. It'll go and churn those as if you'd gone to all those web pages and hit the export and waited for the files. And then they just show up in your browser bar in the footer. Once you have those, we just go over to step 2, where we just drag those files into the browser, and the browser is taking those are PPT files. The browser has code in it to parse those files out and extract out the images. So here we wanted to take the Domo dashboards and the flexibility that those bring, because we can make changes to those on the fly as we go without having to require an IT development cycle and a deployment. We can change all those visualizations if new rules come up or if a new product gets introduced. Those get represented in the dashboards as those images in the slides. We pull the images out. We have the ability to exclude things and modify our headers on the fly if we choose to here. We have a bunch of other customizations if we want to include certain metrics or if we want to include some other placeholder things in the document. And we hit generate and we will get something nice and pretty. And here we have a balance in our PowerPoint. This is just a subset of the document here, but you can see on the left side some of the dashboard slides that have been extracted out and placed nicely in position on the page with that little lovely red strip on the right. We've got our section headers because we know the sections based on the file names of the attachments. And then we did some investment in native PowerPoint generation for things like the summary. And you can see here the XXX. I was so happy making these demo slides because I didn't have to go and open up Photoshop to mask out any pricing information or something. It's native PowerPoint, so I can just go through and edit it just like in text on there. So we tried to capture that sweet spot of flexibility so that we can make it easy to edit what's easy, and then the other side of the easy to edit is editing in the dashboard stuff, so we can do what's good in Domo there and do what's good at the rep's desk
And I think in terms of change management, right, if you go and make changes in Domo, it just automatically flows through to your report generation. So that makes it super easy to upkeep.
Exactly. I mean, as you can imagine, with the number of edge cases that that can come up on here, both with the data, but also in presentation, quite often it's somebody reports something, we're able to quickly turn around a fix that works for everybody out of the gate and works with this solution, which is fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. We have a little bit of time for maybe 1 or 2 questions just from the audience. So if you pull up the chat, you can type in your questions and we'll see if we can get them answered. All right, we have a first question from Tanner. He says, is there a way we can repurpose this for other customers? Tanner, I assume you meant the Roger functionality, maybe? Is that right? Yes, you did. So Kristian and Jason, he likes it so much, he wants to try to see if he could reuse it. Maybe he can contribute it to the community.
Talk to Jim. He's on the line.
For the custom export, for sure. But if you want to, if anybody on the call wants to talk about some of the trials and tribulations and some of the challenges on there, please feel free to reach out, and we're more than happy to have those conversations outside of the 2 minutes on the panel. Because as you can imagine, we went through a bit of an adventure there, but it wasn't as hard as it felt like it would be.
Fabulous. We're gonna do one more question. We'll see, because I think this one actually has a pretty interesting answer, and you probably all have a perspective on it, which is, how do you organize your staff who manage the Domo standards, such as who get access to what data, locking certain reports, et cetera? And I would actually imagine that each of you have that challenge, right? Just in different ways in terms of the distribution. So maybe we'll start with you, Julian, maybe Julian and Ryan. I think you guys can kind of share your different scenarios.
Yes, well, I'll jump in and say, actually, I can cheat on this and say we're a very small company, and the data department is even smaller. So managing access within the company isn't a problem. And then as we are distributing it to clients as well, our kind of Domo Everywhere solution is to use the subscriber instances. So we have kind of full control over what data is published to which clients, and then we can further manage access within groups in there. So so that's kind of how we do it. But in terms of kind of the governance of that as well, it is fairly straightforward, because we're a small company and there's clear delineation between our clients as well.
Ryan, was that similar for you?
Not quite. So we actually had to do a lot of filtering because there's a potential like hundreds of clients with different very specific data. So rather than dealing with a bunch of permission load, what we ended up doing was just making sure the data set in Domo with the granularity we wanted had a client specific primary key. And then when we use the Domo API to pull the data into our custom app, you can just add that client ID to the API query. And we were able to get it that way. So we would load in an array of the clients we wanted for that quarter. And then from that array, take our ID and add it to the API call. So filter it on the fly.
All right. And for the Rogers team, because I think you guys have a pretty intricate web, I should say, of sales reps, people, data, everything.
Yeah, so we put in and we did pay attention when we got Domo. The governance training was very helpful on there, and we established a couple of key sets of roles. Kristian, I think we've got about 4 really, like 3 main ones for the end users, and then we've got some admin ones on top of that help to kind of control how much damage somebody can do. There have been a few mishaps from time to time, but for the most part, editing the ETLs is limited to a fairly restricted group of people who know enough not to mess with areas that they shouldn't be, and that generally sorts itself out from there. So we do have some limitations on there where, call it 80% of our users really don't have access to make those kinds of changes.
Yeah, and I think the dashboards are, I think if we would have specific sort of, smaller circle facing dashboards, they would be powered by data sets that are sort of unique to those dashboards. So there's not really a worry about those users on those data sets. We manage it at the page level. We did something similar to what Ryan was describing. What we were building we have an Excel solution we didn't really talk through today, but there have been a couple of instances where we've exposed that external to Rogers and then layered on sort of that same filtering where the data has to be associated to that client in order for them to be able to get access to it via the API.
All right, we still actually have a fair number of people on, so I just want to get maybe the last question that came in that we got, which is, how challenging is it to bring the React framework into the custom app dev environment?
I can jump in on this one. If you're familiar with how to start up a React app and its complexities or lack of complexities, however you want to look at it, it's just as easy. The trickiest thing, which isn't that tricky, I should say the only thing you have to do is download the Domo CLI to make sure you can start up a Domo app, link it to your Domo instance. And then from there, you just got a skeleton app and you can do whatever you want with it. So if you're familiar with React, it's that easy to bring it in. I think it's like 3 steps to get the Domo CLI installed. They got great documentation on it, so that if you're familiar and have the experience, that should be pretty seamless.
They're going to hold you to that, right? You quantified it now. So 3 steps it is. Well, look, I really want to thank all the participants for joining us today that came and listened to this panel. So thank you. And thank you to the panelists for making just a great session, sharing your experiences and your insights. So really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for your attention, and enjoy the rest of Domo Palooza.
Thanks all.
Thanks so much.